let's talk about spaced repetition. This is probably one of the best, most repeatedly proven way to improve learning. And we will actually revisit this during the techniques section as well because it's so important. And the idea is that revisiting and practicing what you learn is important. Because research shows that spaced repetition, which is repeating things after a few days, is the best way to build and strengthen the synaptic connections in our neurons to improve memory. That's why we want to avoid cramming, which doesn't build solid neural structures. The idea is to put just as much time as you would have cramming, but instead, spacing it over a long period of time. For example, if this was a graph of our learning. We learn something, and then as time passes, we start to forget it. But then we do spaced repetition. We spend another day remembering and practicing that skill. Well, that improves our learning. And then again, as time passes, we forget a little bit, and then we learn it again, and then again, and then again. Eventually, our learning, although it's always constantly in a dip, it improves with each repetition that we do, because each time we're strengthening our connections in our neurons. The main takeaway on this point is not to spend too much time in one sitting going over the same material over and over and over again. The law of diminishing return applies here. It's the idea that you don't need 12 hours a day to learn a topic. Your time can be better used efficiently when learning when it's spread out over many sessions, and even over many different modes of learning. You will notice that I placed these lessons not completely in sequential order, or an order that may make sense to you. And I'm trying to take advantage of spaced repetition here. I've mentioned the topic of spaced repetition now a few times in this course. So it should trigger something in your brain. We also talked about focus and diffuse mode several times in different lectures, again, improving your understanding of focused and diffused mode of thinking. By this point, we should have talked enough about diffuse and focus mode that it almost becomes natural to you. You can explain this concept. You can use the Feynman technique to explain this to a friend. That's what spaced repetition is. The idea that cramming is not a good strategy, but repeating things, doing things over and over, taking each day to do one thing well, or each week, once a week to do something over long term really help you build those neural connections to create those long-term memories.